whether it be an issue of finances.
Chair apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose does the lady rise?
The gentleman yields.
Chair recognizes Ms. Gregoire.
Thank you, and I appreciate your yielding. My question for you, sir, is to the underlying amendment. And my understanding of this issue is that as we wait for the federal immigration reform, we're currently looking at more than 20 statuses between legal and illegal. And the problem lies in the gray, not in the black and white. And how that will be enforced with this language and what exactly we're looking at as far as your language and how it applies to the gray. And I would really like to know the answer to that. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry Sandwich.
I thank the gentlelady for her question, and I concur again that the federal government has dropped the ball. And I'm not optimistic that Congress and this president is headed towards any real immigration reform that is going to give states the tools we need to protect our budgets. There is a pretty clear line to me, and it's defined in federal law. And if some wish to come to the microphone after me, which I predict they will, and attempt to cloud the debate with definitions of immigration status, so be it. This vote is whether or not you want to make folks go, all folks who apply for state benefits, to go through this safe process which is working in other states. Or whether or not you want to use an excuse of we don't know how many illegal immigrants there are getting benefits, whether or not you want to use an excuse of the failures of the federal government, or whether or not you will allow the excuse of a further fake study to think that you're not voting on this. This is a pretty clear vote. It's going to be a pretty clear vote for me, and I think it's going to be a very clear vote for the people who are watching us today. Do you want benefits to be able to be received by people who are here illegally or not? Or are you going to use the cover of a study to protect yourself?
Chair apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Does the gentleman yield?
Gentleman does not yield.
The gentleman does not yield. Chair recognizes Mr. Perry of Sandwich.
I apologize to the gentleman. However, I feel it's prudent that I finish my comments and allow others to have the opportunity to speak as the courtesy so presents itself. I do want to talk just for a moment on the procedures of this particular issue. I have filed this as a bill before, the same issue as a bill. It was House Bill 3803 in the last session. It moved around from committee to committee, 3 different committees, 3 different hearings, studied. There is no study. I filed this bill this term as 3387. It had a public hearing last October. It has not moved. My guess is it will go into another study. This issue was filed last year as a budget amendment, and it was studied. So I think it's more prudent, if you have technical questions about the issue, about the numbers of illegal immigrants, about how the grayness of the immigration laws at the federal level impact us, about the policies and procedures of this Commonwealth, I think you should ask the people who were responsible to do those studies that never happened. And if you think that a further amendment to allow another study is anything but an excuse not to have to take a difficult vote, I think you're fooling yourself.
Chair apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose, lady, rise? Gentleman yields. The chair recognizes Ms. Benson.
Thank you. And I have just a simple question. This amendment was listed as non-budgetary, and yet you've said it would cost $6 per person. And if every adult person applying for public benefits, it would cost $6 per each of those people, what would the budgetary impact be? So I guess my comment is this is not non-budgetary, and have you accounted for that, and do you have an appropriation to go along with this? Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry Sandwich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the lady for her question. I had no responsibility or influence on where this amendment was categorized. And I will refer to the lady of the Chairman of Ways and Means and refer her to the study of last year, or the study of the last session, or any study that's been done on this bill before. This is a pretty clear vote. Do you think it's good public policy to ensure that only legal residents of Massachusetts...
Chair apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Does the gentleman yield?
Gentleman does not
The
yield.
gentleman does not yield. The chair recognizes Mr. Perry of Sandwich.
I apologize to the gentleman from Boston. I try to extend the courtesies that are extended to me. And I am just about concluded with my remarks. This is a clear vote. Others will come and attempt to cloud the issue. It's a pretty clear choice. Do you want to ensure that your tax dollars that you take from your constituents only go to legal residents? Or do you want to continue the policy of no one checking, no one
Chair
asking?
apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Will the gentleman yield for a question?
The gentleman does not yield.
The gentleman does not yield. The chair recognizes Mr. Perry of Sandwich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm really just trying to get through my concluding sentence. The question is clear. Do you want to vote for a public policy that ensures that people who apply for state benefits are vetted, that they are not in prison, that they are not collecting benefits somewhere else, that their identity is what they say
Chair
it is?
apologizes to the gentleman at the microphone. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman does not yield.
Gentleman does not yield. The chair recognizes Mr. Perry of Sandwich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I once again apologize to the gentleman from Boston. It's not my intent to take up the entire afternoon at the podium. My intent is to complete a sentence here. And that sentence is, is it your desire as a member of this House and a representative of the people to ensure that the tax dollars taken from them only go to people who are applying for state benefits, who are here legally, that are not victims of identity fraud, that are not in prison, that are not collecting benefits and duplicate names or Social Security numbers? Do you want to ensure that our tax dollars are spent on legal, hard-working residents and citizens of this Commonwealth or not? Mr. Speaker, I hope that this further amendment is rejected and the underlying amendment is adopted.